The biggest political scandal in American history.
Didn't hear a lot about Joe Biden. Why? Because he didn't do anything.
Depending on what news you watch, a controversy involving President Joe Biden's family is either
Hunter Biden,
The Biden crime family.
Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden.
the Hunter Biden plea deal,
Hunter Biden was Hunter Biden, the crackhead.
one of the great corruption scandals in modern American history, a scandal that could lead to impeachment hearings within months. Or it's a partisan joke, a right-wing rabbit hole, a misguided obsession up there with Benghazi and Barack Obama's missing birth certificate.
I don't have any concerns. I think this is a witch hunt, but there has never been any evidence that Joe Biden has compromised his office.
So which is it? Serious, silly, or somewhere in between? Let's break it down. Before the 2020 election, some media, very few, mostly right-wing media, ran allegations that Joe Biden's relatives dabbled in influence peddling, that Biden's family, and especially his son, Hunter, got paid for their connections to him. Millions poured in from foreign countries from 2014 to 2018, from Ukraine, from Romania, from China, from people with criminal convictions elsewhere for corrupting public officials. For example, Hunter Biden received at least $664,000 from one Chinese company by his own admission in court for consulting services. That company was tight with the government in Beijing. Then one of its representatives was convicted of corruption, and the company chairman mysteriously vanished in 2018. These allegations were first reported by the New York Post in 2020, before the election, before Americans voted. Here's how Joe Biden responded. He said he'd never talk business with his son. He said his family never drew payments from China.
My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China. Say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage.
The Post contradicted all of this. It said it had Hunter Biden's laptop abandoned at a repair shop with evidence on it that Joe Biden knew about his son's work, that Biden had repeatedly met his son's business partners. The paper also reported a disputed, still unproven, allegation that Joe Biden himself took a cut of this foreign money while he was out of politics. The story got minimal attention during the election. It was dismissed by retired U.S. intelligence officials who called it possible Russian disinformation. Few media touched the story. It was even suppressed. When people tried posting this story on social media, Facebook and Twitter blocked it. The White House press secretary was even forced off Twitter for posting this story. The journalist who first reported on all of this for the New York Post, she's from Montreal. Emma Jo Morris, a Canadian, at a recent congressional hearing, mocked other media who are only now acknowledging this story.
Over the last few years, my reporting has been confirmed by virtually every mainstream news outlet, from the Washington Post to the New York Times to Politico, when the stakes were nothing, by the way, 2 years later.
What she's saying is, this should have been reported before the election, before Americans voted. To Republicans, the stifling of this story was a scandal with monumental political implications.
It probably changed the outcome of the election. The court noted that they suppressed, among other topics, the Hunter Biden laptop story, and the court noted, not you, not me, not Republicans, that millions of Americans were not exposed to that story. Had they been, we know they might have voted differently.
Now, here we are, 3 years later. Republicans now have control of this House of Representatives, and they're using it to hold hearing after hearing into the Biden family with a procession of witnesses, like tax investigators who wanted to charge Hunter Biden with serious felony tax crimes, like writing off encounters with prostitutes as a business expense. 2 IRS investigators allege they were not allowed to pursue this case, that supervisors interfered with their investigation in a way they had never witnessed before.
It appeared to me, based on what I experienced, that the U.S. Attorney in Delaware in our investigation was constantly hamstrung, limited, and marginalized by DOJ officials as well as other U.S. attorneys. I still think that a special counsel is necessary for this investigation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They've shared their evidence with Congress. Here's one notable snippet. A text exchange where Hunter tries applying pressure on a Chinese businessman. He says in this 2017 message, I'm sitting here with my father. You will regret not following my direction. The White House has now changed its official line. Remember that denial that the Bidens ever talk business? That's gone. So is the denial of Chinese revenues. The new line is the president was never in business with his son. Okay, so what does any of this actually prove? When that text message was sent in 2017, Joe Biden wasn't even in office. In fact, the message itself is kind of vague, and there's no evidence at all that Joe Biden was ever aware of it being sent. Hunter Biden's defense is that this was a chapter in his life when he was struggling with serious drug addiction. His lawyers say that in this disastrous period, Hunter was speaking for himself, not for his dad. They say Republicans are taking little tidbits and exaggerating, building a wall of falsehoods from tiny bricks of truth. And the biggest falsehood of all, the Democrats say, is that any of this involves the president.
Didn't hear a lot about Joe Biden. Why? Because he didn't do anything. This has nothing to do with him.
Take the most incendiary claim of all, that Joe Biden got a cut of these foreign transactions, starting years earlier when he was still vice president. Republicans keep repeating it and suggesting Biden's been corrupted, but they don't have any first-hand evidence. They have sources. One is a disgruntled ex-business partner of Hunter's. Another, an FBI informant who said he heard something from someone else. It is preposterous, Democrats say, to watch Republicans crying foul now, after the presidency of Donald Trump, where they spent years ignoring repeated conflicts of interest, bigger conflicts of interest.
Of course, President Trump got $5.4 million from the Chinese while he was president because they were leasing space in Trump Tower. He goes out and air kisses President Xi. Totally perfect. Jared Kushner gets $2 billion from the Saudis, even though he oversaw Mideast peace. Totally kosher. Ivanka Trump, she's doing business with the Chinese while she's working in the White House. Totally beautiful.
So, what now? Republicans are starting to talk about maybe an impeachment inquiry. They're being pressured to do it by Donald Trump. And Trump isn't just egging them on, he is demanding it.
Any Republican that doesn't act on Democrat fraud should be immediately primaried and get out.
Let's be clear. There is no way impeachment will remove Joe Biden from office. The Senate won't let that happen. But it would put everything we've just discussed in a high-profile, primetime news-making forum, right as the 2024 election ramps up. So what's the bottom line here? Will this hurt Joe Biden in next year's election? Or might it even help him? Allow him to argue, Republicans are fixated on fantasies, and I'm focused on you, the American voter. We will have your answer in 15 months when Americans pick a president.